Halloween ends. It takes a drastic turn from where it started in 2018. A lot of fans go into this movie, and when they come out of it, they're angry, and I can understand why. Michael is not in this movie as much as he should be. Now, fair warning, before we even get any further, this will have spoilers. This review will contain spoilers, so if you don't want to know spoilers, click off, go watch the movie, come back, and then check out this review. The story is very much focused on the new character, Corey Cunningham. And if you think back to when I did my reaction to the plot synopsis when that dropped, and the details we were learning at the time, I said Arnie in his car, Corey in his Michael. Well, that's pretty much what happened here. This was almost like a love letter to Christine, which I don't mind because I love the movie Christine. I absolutely love it. Corey works in a junkyard, so it's being pretty in your face about it. He's babysitting this kid. Kid's probably, 7 or 8 years old. They're watching horror movies. He decides, he wants to play hide and seek with the kid to kind of get him away from the horror movies because he's a little young for it. Kid doesn't want nothing to do with it. Kid disappears. He's looking all over the place for him. Turns out the kid was playing around with him, and while he's looking for him, he gets locked in the attic. Kid locks him in the attic. Corey starts to bust down the door, and the parents are coming home just at that moment when he kicks the door open, accidentally hitting the kid, and the kid goes flying over the railing, falling 3 stories down. 3 floors, 3 stories, falls down, dead. Kills the kid. Clearly by accident, but of course the parents, at least definitely the mother, is blaming him for this. And this took place in 2019, so this took place a year after 2018 and what happened in Kills, obviously. Then we flash forward 4 years later, past 2018, so now we're in 2022. He got off from any kind of murder charge because he's still out and he's in the public, but now he's shunned by the public because they all believe that he's a killer, and he's tortured and tormented by this. He's very reserved, and if you've seen Christine, he's very much like Arnie in the beginning of that movie, where he's very reserved, I guess you would say. You get the same kind of vibe here. Lori and Allison are living in a new house that Lori bought. They're trying to move on with their lives. Lori's writing a memoir about her past experiences with everything. Allison starts to have a liking towards Corey, and of course they start to become a thing. They become a couple. Corey ends up getting bullied. He's being bullied by these other kids in the first part of the movie, and they come back to bully him some more at night, knocking him over this bridge. And the bullying stuff, it's just like in Christine when Arnie's getting bullied. It's right in line with that. Gets knocked over this bridge and he lands down there, and they're like, oh my god, we killed him, and they're freaking out and they leave. Then all of a sudden we see Corey get dragged into this pipe, this sewer pipe, and then we come to find out that it is Michael who dragged him in there. And while he has him in there, he grabs a hold of him and he brings him real close, and he looks directly into his eyes, almost like he's passing the evil to Corey, or maybe he's seeing the evil that's in Corey's eyes, much like his own, seeing a little bit of himself in there, realizing that maybe he can use him to bring him people to kill so that he can regain energy, maybe something like that, I guess. And that's exactly where we go. I mean, we get to a point where Corey is out killing on his own. Now, mind you, Allison and Lori don't even realize this. Lori introduced Corey to Allison, and they hit it off, and they become in love with each other almost. They're riding around on his motorcycle and everything else. Lori does start to notice, though, after Corey is out, after the encounter with Michael, and he's out and about again, she does start to notice the evil in his eyes. At one point, she walks up to her window, and much like the scene in the original Halloween, we see Corey standing by a bush looking up into the window at her, and she knows right then and there that there's something not right with him. And Allison is oblivious to this for most of the movie. It just progressively gets worse from there, and it gets to the point where Corey is now out. He's actually killing on his own now, and he has like a funky clown mask that he got from Allison at the one Halloween party at the bar they went to, which of course Lindsay is the bartender there. We only see Lindsay for a little bit in this movie, not very much. So we see Corey, he's out and he's killing this doctor at his house. This doctor and nurse are at their house. He's killing him out by the swimming pool, and she sees this, so she goes running to call for help. And then we realize Michael's actually there with him, and Michael was killing her and kills her, stabbing her up against the wall, the scene we've seen in the promotional photos and other things. So they're actually killing together as a tandem duo. They're out doing exactly what I kind of figured was going to happen here. Now, this only happens like once or twice like this. And let me just say, also, the movie's a very slow burn, and I mean a very slow burn. It goes all the way back to how the original was a very, very slow burn. This may be even a slower burn. The people that have an attention span of a gnat, it's really going to turn them off, which is basically a lot of people these days. You know, they want it bam, bam, bam like that. That's not this movie. And like I said, Laurie starts to become aware of how evil he is. Corey at one point decides that he needs Michael's mask. So they have a little scuffle in the sewer. Michael's still very weak. He doesn't have a lot of strength yet. So Corey, he's weak enough that Corey gets the one up on him and gets the mask, and he runs away with the mask. And this is how we get Corey in the mask. We go back to the junkyard where Corey works, and the bullies show up there one night, and in a very Christine-like scene, all the bullies get killed one by one. And there's a couple other things that happen there, like one of the bullies gets a gun from the dad, Corey's dad, I do believe. His dad doesn't realize it's Corey until like the very last moment before his death. And he's not actually killed by Corey, he's killed by one of the bullies trying to shoot Corey. Corey's standing there with the mask, and it's clearly evident that he has, you know, a pair of coveralls on. It's not Michael's coveralls. Thank God, because we were worried about if there was birthday suit Myers. No birthday suit Myers here. It just keeps delving more and more into this madness, and we get to a climatic point where Laurie's ready to give up. She's going to kill herself. She even calls it in. Ultimately, what happens is Corey shows up, dressed as Michael. He's going to go try to kill her. It was all ploy to get him there, and she shoots him right there, and he goes flying down the steps. And then she walks down there, and in the middle of this, she's telling him to go ahead and do it. He grabs the knife, and then he hears Allison coming, and instead decides to stab himself in the neck. So that's basically almost the end of him, even though he doesn't die at this point. He's laying there bleeding out. And then Allison comes in, sees this. She thinks Grandma just killed her boyfriend because she doesn't know what's going on. And in the midst of this, the mask is laying on the ground. Michael shows up. There's the big fight that we've seen in the trailer. She stabs him to the table. You know, they're fighting all over the place. Then she stabs him to the table with a couple different things, a couple different knives, hammers him down to the table, and then sits here and takes his mask off, which, I mean, here we go with this whole mask. Like, how many times does he lose his mask in this trilogy of movies? My God. Takes his mask off, slits his throat real slow, too. Real slow, right? And then he reaches up, and he's grabbing her throat like he's not done. And she's like, fine, just do it. Allison comes in, grabs his arm, pretty much breaks it over the side of the table, and then Laurie takes the knife and slowly slits his wrist open. And then he starts bleeding out everywhere. So everybody shows up, Hawkins and all them. The Sheriff Barker, well, we were wondering how much of a big deal he's going to be in this movie. Zero. He shows up at the end and he says, that's not how it's going to be tonight. And then they strap Myers to the top of the vehicle. They take him to the junkyard. There is a big metal grinder there. Throw him in. And that's the end of Michael Myers. Now listen, as half-assed and nonchalant as I just made that, that's how it felt in the movie. That ending with Michael and Laurie in the kitchen, and then to the junkyard, and then the final scene with the death of Michael Myers, completely felt like the afterthought that I just made it feel like with how I talked about it. One other thing I wanted to point out in the movie is we were wondering about the radio tower, because David Gordon Green mentioned this radio tower playing a big part. Well, apparently it's like a beacon of light for Corey, and he's always drawn to it for some reason. Maybe because of what he's going to end up doing there, which he ends up killing the radio DJ, and there's another woman in there as well. Kills the radio DJ, and real nasty kill there where he smashes his face off the table multiple times, lifts his head up, and his face is all mangled, and the tongue's hanging out. Grabs a pair of scissors and cuts the tongue off. Very nasty. That's one of the gory kills in the movie where you actually see the kill. A lot of these kills in this movie are off-screen, left to your imagination, which I like that. I like that. But that was one of the gory kills in the movie. Anyway, end of the movie. It's the next day. Obviously, Allison knows what happened, and she's forgiven Laurie. Hawkins shows up, and they make amends, and they're left talking on the porch, and that's how the movie goes out. That's how the movie ends. Halloween ends. So, with that said, I found this movie to be very interesting, and I really like it. It's more of a thriller horror movie, even though it's got the horror in there and the slashing. It's more in line with a thriller, the very slow, drawn-out burn, and a lot of kills are left to your imagination. But I very much enjoyed this movie. except for a couple of little problems I have with it. The first problem I have with it is how the movie ends, because it's very detailed in how deep dives into the characters leading up to this third act. And once we get to the third act and we get to the end, we get to the big battle, it's not really that big of a battle. It's not all that crazy. It gets crazy here and there, but compared to what happened in 2018, it doesn't get that crazy, okay? So it's a little bit anticlimactic there already. Once they're done and they're like slicing them and stuff like that and bleeding them out, it's very really fast moving and very dreamlike almost, and they carry him away to the junkyard, and I mean, it's just like carry him away, and the whole town's there somehow. The town's like, yay, we knew all this happened, we're here. So the whole town's there, and they're body surfing him all the way over there, crowd surfing him, basically, the body, all the way over to the meat grinder so Laurie can push him in, and then he lays down and the thing, Laurie pushes him in, and it's all cut, rolled, bing, 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 bang, like it's an afterthought. Almost like it's completely shoehorned into the movie, which is just, I have a problem with that. I just, you know, that I don't like. I don't mind him thrown in the meat grinder. I know people are going to hate that he's thrown in the meat grinder. I hate how it played out with it being so, oh, well, we're just doing this, da-da-da, bam. I mean, that's what it felt like. It felt like, okay, we had the fight, we're just going to go, throw in the meat grinder, baby-doo. Just like that, an afterthought. So, huge mistake there doing it like that. When you had a lot of substance through the rest of the movie, that at the end of the day, like I said, feels a lot like Christine, and we knew this because it was obviously reported on that David Gordon Green was worried that it might be too Christine, and he asked John Carpenter about that. Well, it was definitely, it was Christine. There's a lot of Christine. Hell, even Carpenter's score kind of goes into Christine sounds throughout some scenes and things like this. We even got a little Christine vibe in the soundtrack, which I actually really liked. But yes, there was very much a Christine vibe. And the other vibe I got from it, which is also a good thing, is right away when the title sequence hits at the beginning, you realize that the font is no longer the same. The font is not the font that you got in 2018 or Kills. The font in 2018 and Kills was the same font in the original 1978 film. Here we get the Halloween 3 font. Halloween 3 font, okay? Straight up, the exact Halloween 3 font used in the title credit sequence in Halloween 3. Now, the title sequence didn't look like Halloween 3 with that grid thing in the background, but you know, you got a pumpkin, but the pumpkins kept splitting open to more pumpkins and more pumpkins, so it was cool little title sequence. But the font was Halloween 3, and I think that right there was a message that was trying to get across to the fans right out of the gate that this is not going to be your normal Halloween movie. They expected this movie to piss people off. What did Halloween 3 do back when it came out? It pissed a lot of people off. That's exactly what Halloween Ends is doing right now. It's pissing a lot of people off. And they knew it was going to piss people off because it's such a departure, so much of a departure that it actually feels like an anthology story instead of a story within the Halloween universe. Some people don't feel like a Halloween movie. It actually does feel like a Halloween movie. It's just in the context of what's going on and being so programmed into just Michael Myers walking through a movie and slashing and everything else. You may not feel like a Halloween movie in that sense, but does Halloween 3 feel like a Halloween movie? Yes, of course it feels like a Halloween movie, but not a Michael Myers Halloween movie. Same here. This does not feel like a Michael Myers movie. It feels like a Halloween movie, but an anthology maybe in a sense that has the Christine vibes, and Michael Myers is just kind of playing a cameo to forward the story of Corey Cunningham. It really does work for me until that afterthought of an ending. And the other thing I will say is that while I like this movie, I actually really like this movie, it's very fresh, it's very different, it takes risks, it goes and does things that you aren't expecting it to do. But why did they decide to do this as the third movie in a trilogy? I just don't know. It doesn't feel like it should be a third movie in a trilogy at all. It feels like its own standalone thing, and that it should have nothing to do with the other movies at all. Maybe just in essence because of what happened in the other ones and those characters are in this movie, but it feels like its own separate contained story. It does not feel like a part of the trilogy. It feels like a new beginning almost. Hell, it almost feels like Friday the 13th, a new beginning. Not quite that crazy, ridiculous. I think that they messed up with the ending. That should have been way more focused on than it was, and not the afterthought that it was. And then the fact that they did this as the third movie in the trilogy. If they started out with this movie instead, and they kind of moved things around, or if this movie was in the middle, it probably would have worked better like that. But as a third movie in a trilogy, an afterthought ending, like I said, I don't have a problem with them throwing them in the damn meat grinder. Getting to that point, how we got there, from that third act battle between Laurie and Michael, that should have been way more epic than that. I know Laurie said she wanted it to not feel like a movie fight. She wanted it to feel like a real fight. And it did actually feel like a real fight. But the problem is you've already done all this other epic stuff in the other two movies that it just feels less. Whereas the rest of the movie was very well thought out and well acted, very well acted, looked great. The mood and the atmosphere was on point. The music was absolutely excellent by John Carpenter. And I really liked this movie. And what's really crazy, and I don't care if anybody has a problem with it, I actually may like this movie the best out of this trilogy. Just for the risks it takes, it does it well, and it really tells a very intriguing story that I would like to see continue on, but it's hampered by that ending, and it's hampered by the fact that it is the third movie in a trilogy. So, with that said, I'm going to have to give it the old 3 out of 5 knives. That's right, 3 out of 5 knives. A fresh new direction. Tried different things. Got a little risky there. It is not a Michael Myers movie. Michael Myers is in the movie. It is not a Michael Myers movie. In the essence of this kind of Halloween movie, Halloween 3, it is a Halloween movie. It feels like a Halloween movie without shot and everything like that. And maybe a love letter to Halloween 3, being that they knew it was going to be completely different than the rest. Hence the font. It is 40 years since the release of Halloween 3. Take that into account. They knew that was going to be a thing. And they were rewriting. They knew they were going to move these movies up. And that's when they rewrote this movie, knowing that it was the 40th anniversary of Halloween 3. And they went down this road. So, and just don't forget, Jamie Lee said months ago, this movie's going to piss you off. And quite frankly, it clearly did. But, unbeknownst to her, I'm not that mad. I actually liked it. So with that said, I'll catch you all down the road.